Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us again today for another eMarketer Tech Talk, where we host guests of all areas of ad tech, martech, and media. I'm Nancy Tefera-Santos, Senior Vice President, eMarketer Insider Intelligence. Today, we have a really good presentation. I'm excited about this. We're going to hear how to effectively position your CTV ad strategy based on analysis of, get this, over 10 million hours of advertising data. That's pretty incredible. We want this to be an educational journey for you, so please send in questions during the presentation. We'll get to as many as we can during the Q&A, so please keep them coming. Now I want to introduce my special guest. Today I have with me Tim Edmundson, who's Director of Content and Research at MNTN. Hi, Tim.
Hi, Nancy. How's it going?
It's so nice to have you here with us today, and I'm personally excited to hear what you have to say and dig into this data.
Likewise. Again, thank you for having me. Thank you to eMarketer. Big fan. Love the work you guys do. Love the focus on trends, stats, and all that stuff. And that's going to dovetail nicely into what we're talking about today. Let's get into it. So I'm your presenter, obviously. I'm Tim Edmundson, Director of Content Research, as Nancy said. My big focus at MNTN is really drilling into the stories and the narratives that are emerging in this industry. It's an interesting time to be a part of it because we are definitely out of the early stages. I think that when it comes to connected TV as an industry, we're seeing more and more adoption on the user side. We're seeing giant names now being very active in it. And with all of that action and drama comes stories. And so I'm here to share a bit of the narratives we've found as we've poured through tons and tons of data. It's been spreadsheets for days, and we found some really cool stuff. So I'm excited to share it with you guys. So here's our agenda for the day. First up, I'm going to get into what the data-driven stories are all about. What does that mean? What's the context? How are they supplied, et cetera? Super stoked for that. We're going to discuss a little bit about how we are seeing digital natives kind of really embracing TV for the first time. That's kind of influencing how they are using it as an advertising medium. It's interesting stuff. We're going to cover that. The full funnel solution that dovetails from the previous point about how these digital natives are using it. We're going to have some tips around seasonal and evergreen campaigns, and then this is topical, a little bit of economic uncertainty in the air. I think everyone knows that. We're going to touch on connected TV's ability, its strengths as an ad channel during those times. So let's dive in. Okay, so we're talking data-driven stories, right? And so the rise of connected TV, there's been no bigger story out there than this, I think in the ad world in terms of an emerging opportunity. As I mentioned, user numbers are through the roof, continuing to climb. The ad-supported area specifically, I'm sure you guys saw the news, Microsoft and Netflix teaming up to launch the ad-supported tier for that service. And so with this ascension has come a ton of information. Unlike linear TV, which is very much, analog, this is TV advertising as a digital channel. And with that comes a lot of information. And not only that, it's given us information and insight into not only like the impressions served or how many people were reached, but the actions that are being taken after the fact. That's huge, right? That's been the dream of TV advertising forever. And now there's actual hard data to be able to support, what sort of return on ad spend an ad campaign was driving. How many people visited a website because of an ad? This is all possible now. And with that, we can see the trends and insights and all that fun stuff and share it with you guys. And the way that we're doing that, there we go, is something we call MNTN Research. So MNTN Research, we created this because I've said it a million times at this point, sitting on a lot of information, a lot of data. And not only in addition to that, but there's a ton of information out there that's being published by third-party researchers, other firms. eMarketer, you guys have been an inspiration to me over the years. I cannot tell you how many times I've pulled stats from your site. There's a ton of information out there. And MNTN Research is a way for us to be able to contribute to bringing a little clarity to the space. There's a ton of stories that are out there. We've created MNTN Research to unify those stories, contribute our own perspective using our own first-party data, and also touch on all the other trends that are happening and bring them into one place. That's what this is all about. And so this is our first webinar using MNTN Research data. So super stoked to share it with you guys today. So what stories can we tell? Well, I mentioned that connected TV has been a growth story for some time, right? Well, if you are on this call, you probably know that. You are probably very privy to a lot of growth stats tied to it. And I wanted to share these with you guys. I don't think you'll see a higher percentage increase in growth for a facet of connected TV advertising than there is when it comes to advertisers leveraging it as a performance marketing channel, similar to paid search and social. Pouring through our data has shown us that year over year, we have seen an amazing increase in the amount of verified visits. Those are our proprietary attribution model that determines a website visit. It pulls out if there is any interaction with any other different kind of ad unit. So those are, purely driven by CTV. 854% year over year increase, 914% increase in conversion events, 783% increase in the impressions served. It's remarkable. And this is evidence of CTV being used to do more than just what linear TV has been able to offer in the past. We've seen a bigger variety of the types of advertisers that are leaning into CTV as an opportunity. So what lessons can we learn from this? I touched on it. It's a performance marketing channel. We're seeing a lot of success there. We're seeing a lot of adoption there. It's impactful. It's effective. We're seeing adoption across the board from a lot of advertisers who never really ventured into TV before for a number of reasons. It ranges from, linear buys maybe a little bit too expensive, or there's not an accountability to linear TV ads because you don't have that reliable way of tracking ROI. And a lot of these growth brands, challenger brands, B2B brands, they rely on, returns on every dollar spent. And so it's kind of kept them away. But with CTV, for the aforementioned reasons, we're seeing a lot of adoption across the board from folks that never really got involved before. You can see that stat. I think it speaks for itself. So digital natives are thriving, and we're seeing this in the types of approaches they're taking. And this is a big strategic finding that I think is going to be very valuable, or hopefully valuable to the folks on this call. Because they're not traditionally TV advertisers, they're looking at this as a bit of a different opportunity. They're more inclined to embrace it as that performance channel, because this is something they're very familiar with: paid search, paid social, et cetera. They're used to putting money out there, getting money back. And so because of that, they're leveraging it as a full funnel solution, not only using it as an awareness channel to create demand, a little demand gen action. They're also going through and creating lower funnel campaigns like retargeting that will target the website visitors and engage them with creative to the point where once they're ready to purchase, it is with them. And so they're reaping the rewards from that. Being able to deliver those touch points, extremely valuable, and we're seeing that in the numbers. So raising awareness. So make mention of the fact that this is useful for generating interest in a brand. And that's something where, you're spending like, okay, let's get our brand up in the consideration set. Let's make folks aware of us. But the expectation of getting an ROI on that, not always there. But with CTV, we've seen that ROI exist. You're able to spend money, raise the profile of your brand, and at the same time, generate a return on that ad spend. This is upper funnel efforts that is yielding money coming back. It's paying for itself if you get above that 1x ROAS. That's what we're seeing. And then we pulled some data from the fashion and apparel advertisers to see, what sort of performance they were getting. I think they're pretty solid results for something that's upper funnel advertising. And the way that they do this is through a focused targeting approach. Unlike linear television, which is a broadcast approach, you're buying based on the show or the network, most likely, you're actually able to, with CTV, target specific audiences that match your ideal customer profile. If you are an apparel brand and you're looking for somebody in market for jackets, there is an audience segment for that. If you are regional, you can geolocate your campaign to only hit certain parts of the country, so you're not serving ads for somebody that's never going to purchase from you. Because of this targeting capability, these advertisers are able to use their ad spend more efficiently, raise awareness among the folks that matter most, who will actually engage with their brand, not waste ad impressions, and they reap the benefits. So one of the things, or a few of the things we've seen successful advertisers do when it comes to these upper funnel campaigns, they keep their audience sizes large, but again, they focus in on the audiences that make sense for them. That said, there is a way to overdo that. You don't want to get too narrow in your focus. You have to keep an eye on audience size. So casting a wide net, you want to make sure you're reaching an appropriate amount of people. Thankfully, there are enough audience segments available. For example, Mountain partners with Oracle, uses their data cloud. There's a lot of audiences in there, you guys. Highly recommend popping in and checking it out. You can find a ton that align somewhat with your brand, and we'd recommend, adding folks that may not be a direct hit, but could be likely to engage. And shameless self-promotion about Mountain. We just launched an audience reporting tool where you're actually able to determine specific performance based on the audience segment you selected. So if you have that, like your borderline audience, you can add them to your campaign and see how it works out. So in a way, it's market research at the same time as advertising. Pretty useful tool. And then last but not least, ad creative that is taking advantage of the fact that, that you're trying to drive an action here, tell them what to do, where to go, a persistent CT or a URL. If you have a website you want to drive to, a call to action at the end, throw in a promo, something to prompt engagement and action. It's very useful for your brand. The brands that do that see success. So the other side of the coin when it comes to campaign strategy is the retargeting aspect, this lower funnel campaign that will target the website visitors. And so one of the things that we've seen there is it's extremely useful to use it. By focusing in on folks who have engaged with your brand, you're setting yourself up for success. Look at those stats there for e-commerce advertisers on the platform. We saw a 262% higher return on ad spend and a lower cost per acquisition versus just versus a prospecting campaign. And the reason is because you are focusing in on folks that are further down the funnel and ensuring you're able to capture that conversion, capture that sale, and claim that revenue for your brand. So these are a very important piece of the puzzle. And one of the things that, as we were pouring through the data, we found that you probably want to do both. You want to take advantage of that full funnel approach when it comes to connected TV. Awareness campaigns, amazing. Take advantage of the lower funnel ones as well. You create this 1-2 combo that really yields strong results. So going real fast back to the retargeting aspect, it's kind of similar to the prospecting approach where, it's all in the targeting. You're able to target website visitors, but you don't want to target anyone that just visited your site because there might be some bounces. There might be people that weren't interested. They showed up, they bounced out relatively quickly. The chances of that person wanting to re-engage, not as high as somebody who showed high intent activity while on the website. So if you're familiar with retargeting at all, you know this, and you should be doing the same thing on CTV. You should be focusing in on folks who visited multiple product pages, who added items to their shopping cart. Like, come on, that's intent. That's the most intentful thing they can do, or visited your site multiple times. If you're doing that and you're narrowing your focus just a bit, you're again looking at those more engaged, more qualified users and serving them TV ads to bring them back and convert. And it works. And it's successful, and we highly recommend taking that approach. So I mentioned doing both is a good idea. Here's why. It allows you to serve up more touch points with your audience. You are able to better tell your story. You can see on the left there that storytelling is useful in advertising. And this is something that is emerging more and more when you look at surveys of audiences. They want to connect with the brand that they're buying from. This is becoming a higher priority for folks. And the ability to tell your brand story, connected TV is fantastic for that. It's a visual medium, it's television advertising. The runtimes on the ads allow you to give a little bit more time and space to your story. And it helps forge a bond and a connection with your audience. Once you've done that with these two campaigns, introducing yourself and then continuing the conversation with prospecting and retargeting, you benefit greatly because what we've found as we went through the data for advertisers who were running prospecting and retargeting together, the folks that were doing both were running their prospecting campaigns 57% longer than those were just running prospecting alone. So what does that say? That says, A, they're pretty satisfied with what they're getting because they're seeing that awareness rise, they're driving folks to your website, and then they're able to continue and drive additional revenue with that retargeting campaign. And when they have added retargeting, 34% return on ad spend increase when you add retargeting to a prospecting campaign. Full funnel, full funnel, full funnel. I'll say it a million more times, I'm sure, but I'm throwing a couple more in there right now. So another thing that we find interesting, everyone knows seasonal pushes, sales events. I think every advertiser more or less has some version of that over the course of the year. And so one of the things that performance data unlocks, it allows us to see which verticals are really thriving in certain parts of the year. And I think when you're looking at these verticals here for summer and Father's Day, you're not seeing too many big surprises because these are folks that usually do well during these stretches of time. But what this is saying also is that they are really thriving on connected TV. So if you do have a media plan, if you do have a strategy around these seasonal pushes, we're seeing very strong success for these types of advertisers during these stretches. So if it's not part of your plans, but you're considering it, which if you're on this call, you probably are in some way, this is the confirmation you need. If your brand aligns with a seasonal push of any type, connected TV is a useful tool to have. In terms of what you can learn beyond just these seasonality data points, one of the things we saw with Father's Day, as you get more into the data, one of the stories that we found was that the Father's Day related verticals that we were analyzing, we saw strong revenue leading into the holiday, but an uptick afterwards as the summer approached. These Father's Day verticals had some overlap with summer. There's an opportunity there to keep your campaigns not just seasonal, but move them into an evergreen status. Because connected TV is a digital channel, updating your ad creative can be as simple as just swapping out a file in a UI. Just upload your new ad creative, and now your campaign, with all of its optimizations, with all of its learnings, the Mountain platform uses an optimization engine that just learns and optimizes, learns and optimizes. You can leverage all of that information and keep it going into the next season or just whatever time is after this big push for you and still benefit. And so one of the things we saw with Father's Day, those creatives were good for the for the holiday push. Transitioning into a more summer themed creative allows these brands to really tap into what people are looking for. So it's an interesting insight there. Speaking of Evergreen, talking about going beyond the seasonal approach and transitioning that campaign into something that's basically like an always on performance channel, how you would trade paid search, paid social. We saw these other verticals see very strong return on ad spend performance during these times. You don't necessarily associate furniture with summer. Maybe you do. There's some stuff, maybe buy it for the deck, but you don't really buy furniture for Father's Day. And we saw it perform well there, unless you really like your dad and you get him like a recliner or something. I don't want to rule that out. But point is, Evergreen campaigns thrive on connected TV, and we've seen that in the data. All right, so it's a bit of a pivot from the fun stuff of buying data gift, but we are in a time of a little bit of economic uncertainty here. And this is usually a time when advertisers begin to get a little antsy and look about cutting ad spend. Brand marketing budgets are generally the first to go. Performance marketing budgets, on the other hand, tend to be a little bit more resilient when it comes to weathering economic storms because they offer that ROI, right? I'm probably telling you something you already know. But with this uncertainty on the horizon, or actually we're in it right now, we wanted to see, okay, what happened the last time something in the same vein occurred? And the thing we can look back to in recent memory is the uncertainty that kind of exploded on the scene during the early months of the COVID-19 outbreak. And this was 2020, early 2020. Economic uncertainty was the way to describe that. If you had a 401k, you saw that materialize pretty in a real way. And so what we did was we went back into our data and we said, okay, what happened when advertisers approached this? The folks that either paused a campaign or went inactive versus the folks that kept their campaigns running. How did it pan out for them? Looking at our data set, we split it into two groups: March and April, May and June. First 2 months where we really started to see things go crazy. A couple months after, or the 2 months after that, where things started to stabilize a little bit. We saw that advertisers who kept campaigns live in those very uncertain times benefited from doing so. They saw a higher return on ad spend in the following months than the folks that were not active during that stretch of time. They must have liked what they saw because they increased their ad spend 63% in those following months. And the return on ad spend did not dip. Generally speaking, you know how it goes. If you increase your budget, there's a chance that you might see a little bit of a dip. They maintained their return on ad spend, which was strong, as they increased their spend. And that shows that this was a consistent and reliable source of performance advertising at a time when things were kind of just up in the air. People didn't really know what to do. The folks that stuck with it benefited from it. And so as we move into, we have Q4 coming up. I'm sure a lot of folks probably have that on their to-do list to start planning that fun stuff. This is something to keep in mind. TV advertising is a good thing to include in your planning. Brands that are out of sight on the television screen will sooner or later be out of mind for a larger percentage of consumers. You don't want that to be you. Connected TV allows you to still keep your brand, out there in the mix on a prestige ad channel while simultaneously delivering returns on your ad spend. It's an invaluable thing in these times. So I want to make sure that you guys are aware of that. So what are our key takeaways today? Advertisers are leaning into CTV's potential, treating it a little bit like a digital ad channel, marrying it to TV's storytelling ability and just prestige, are benefiting greatly. They're seeing better results. That full funnel approach is the move. You want to do that. You want to make sure you're getting those touch points in. You want to make sure you're setting yourself up to generate those strong returns on your ad strategy. You can use connected TV for seasonal and transition to evergreen, swapping out creative to support your latest holiday pushes. Hint, hint for Q4. More advertisers are adopting CTV. We're seeing that in our own customer base. We're seeing that just as the ad channel, you look at eMarketer's stats about ad spend on CTV, and there's going to be some new folks in the mix. And so making up those numbers. So if you're not yet on the channel, consider joining in on the fun. And last but not least, accountability and performance measurement makes connected TV a very valuable channel in times where you need to be sure you're generating a return. You need to be responsible with every budget dollar that you've got. Connected TV checks those boxes. Highly recommend you check it out. And all right, I think we are at our Q&A section. I'm going to kick it on over to Nancy.
Tim, thank you so much. This was great information. I really appreciate it. Congratulations on the launch of MNTN Research. So much data here that's phenomenal. And I have to say, thinking of TV as a performance channel is just so cool to me. I don't know if you know, 30 some years ago, I started my career in TV, and who would have ever thought that it could become a performance channel? I mean, you would make an ad, put it out there, and never know that long ago. So it's just, so much fun from that perspective to see how the whole channel has evolved, and CTV is so important. I mean, you mentioned how it's going to grow, looking at eMarketer numbers. We're looking at it being 18 billion this year. It's going to more than double in 2000 and in the next 4 years.
Wow.
And there's over 220 million users in CTV. Like, what an incredible audience to be able to target and, like you said, optimize. So just loved all this. And so did our audience, because we got some great questions. So let me jump to those. The first question coming in says, you mentioned the benefit of CTV as it provides fully measurable results. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you mean by that?
Yeah, for sure. So
Thanks.
it's the level of detail, I think, that is on offer. Fully measurable, what does that mean? So I mentioned a little bit at the top. It's the ability to not only track the ads that are served, the number of impressions, but also the completion rate of said ads. Then you can get into the other side of it. You not only can evaluate how the ads are doing once they're, flying out into the world, but when they start to bring the returns back and you start to see the user actions influenced by your campaign, you can see return on ad spend, you can see website visits, you can see time on site. That's just, and there's a multitude of other cost per acquisition. There's a multitude of other stats that are available. And this is my frame of reference, the Mountain Platform reporting suite, but also Google Analytics. That's another piece of this puzzle that it's fully integrated, or you're able to connect it. You need the right technology partner, shameless plug, Mountain. We are integrated with Google Analytics, but you're able to take advantage of all the metrics that you're using for your other performance campaigns, other digital channels, and compare your CTV performance right alongside of it. So yeah, I mean, if there's a stat you're interested in that you're used to being able to measure, chances are you're going to be able to see that on connected TV.
Fantastic. Thank you. And you spoke about in the beginning of 2020, how advertisers that stuck with it saw increased ROAS. That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that data with us. We have a question that says, with the potential recession, why CTV and not other ad channels?
Yeah, I mean, you should definitely stick with what's working for you in terms of paid search and social. I think adding connected TV to that mix is the move, because if you're looking at you don't want to ditch a channel that's working for you. If anything, you want to find channels that are just like that can produce similar, if not better, results. That's what connected TV is. And I think why we would say connected TV especially is not only are you getting performance metrics, you're getting good ROI, but you're also getting that TV element. If we go back to that quote from Harvard Business Review, TV is impactful. It's something that everyone engages with. Not everyone, most everyone engages with television. People build their whole entire living room setups around it to point things towards it. So you want to have a presence on that particular medium. It's quite valuable in America. And people associate positive things about brands that are advertising on TV. It's almost like that's a way of saying, we made it. We are legit. You should work with us because we have something to offer you. Yeah, it's the combination of it being performance oriented and the prestige of TV. I think that's what really kind of makes it invaluable in terms of a performance marketing mix.
Great, thank you. And I love this next question. Here's a shameless plug. We're actually going to be launching an immersive storytelling product. And in the creation of this product, I forgot how much I love creative and storyboarding and so forth. The question is, can you tell us some trends that you've seen as far as what types of ad messaging, visuals, video lengths, et cetera, are performing best? So let's talk about creative.
Yeah. So we actually have a report that we publish on Mountain Research. It's what makes the perfect CTV commercial that has, I think, answers to this. The one that always jumps out at me, one of the things that was analyzed was, what was the emotion of the ad? What sort of theme did it have? And I will always remember this stat is if an ad used fear as something in, like as a theme in the messaging, their website visit rate, and I can't remember the stat off the top of my head, but their website visit rate outperformed the average like significantly. I want to say exponentially. But the ability to actually like convert, if there was a conversion goal where there's a form to fill out or something to buy, it underperformed the average of the rest of the ads. So fear is something that can prompt somebody to check something out, but it seems like it's kind of limited to that. I'd recommend, nothing else comes to mind off the top of my head, so go check out that report. There's a lot of cool stuff in it. Hopefully that answers that question for those folks.
Nice. Yeah. And interesting you said fear because, I think these things do translate across mediums. We've kind of seen that with subject lines. If you have a subject line that's kind of putting a little worry or a little fear, the conversions aren't as high. The opens might be okay or strong, but the conversions are lower. So interesting how it translates, right?
Yeah, human psychology.
Yeah. Next question. Is there a specific season that CTV is more effective?
Well, I will say, because it's top of mind, Q4. I think whenever we've done in the past, we always try to analyze, okay, what happened for Q4 for the mountain advertisers. And this is something we'll be doing on Mountain Research coming up in the future. It's a very effective way of kind of cutting through the Q4 clutter. It's a very busy time. That's when really the budgets ramp and everyone's vying for attention. And the fact that these ads they have a little bit of an advantage in terms of the format in which they're delivered. They are on, they're being served during like living room time. Somebody's settled into their couch, they're watching television, ad break comes on, they'll watch it, or they have a second device in hand and they're just kind of, that's what I do, flip through the phone or iPad and just hang out, but they're hearing the message, it's playing, it's not interrupted. It's not something like on a social channel where you can just scroll past it. You can't X out of it. It's there and it's present. And so Q4, I think, is an especially effective time to be running connected TV advertising. Again, viewers engage with the story, and there's a very sentimental time, the holidays. In times of economic uncertainty, people prioritize what's important to them, and this is a time when this is important to people. They want to be able to buy gifts for their loved ones. And so I'd say that this is an opportunity coming up. The bigger answer is we've seen it be useful across the board when it comes to just evergreen year-long stuff, but seasonal pushes. Every time we analyze a holiday, we see strong returns. So if you've got any sort of holiday in mind, you should probably be running connected TV.
Great, thank you. Every year I look forward to holiday ads. They're always a lot of tear jerkers out there. You talked about targeting and not getting too focused, whether you're a national or a regional advertiser. Being able to geo target is really important. So the question here is, how small of a geo area can be reliably targeted? DMAs or designated market areas, zip codes, lists, etc. Is there a size recommendation for critical mass?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think that it's going to be different for every brand, specific to your circumstances, right? To answer a piece of that question, the zip code, you can get down to that level. In terms of targeting just a specific one zip code, you probably want to go a little bit more broad, because then you're relying on the population of said zip code, right? So you want to keep an eye on audience size. Probably a good idea to target the area around that as well. Expand your scope just a bit, especially if you have an e-commerce portal. I mean, if you aren't just brick and mortar, technically speaking, you can have purchases from everywhere. And so if you do want to go specific on geo-targeting, my advice, and I feel like I'm echoing some of my colleagues in our customer success organization. I hope I'm doing them justice here. Don't get too narrow. Focus your targeting around your area, but make sure you're getting enough of that area to really build that audience size and connect with customers, because chances are people commute, people move through areas, they're familiar. You're going to want to be able to target those people in a slightly broader area than you might be thinking. That's for like someone who's super specific, super regional. If you're bigger, go nuts. Target the cities that you want to, target multiple zips within those cities. I think if you have an existing like location strategy, try to apply it to connected TV. Take that and bring it to these capabilities. You should probably see success with that. So that's my recommendation there.
Thanks, Tim. We have lots of questions coming in. This is fantastic. I want to encourage our audience, send more. This is fantastic. Next question I have is about B2B. B2B is creeps in everywhere. Is CTV a good channel for B2B specifically?
Oh yeah, I'd say so. It's an interesting thing because B2B has different needs versus a retailer or a B2C brand or a direct-to-consumer brand. It's a lot about lead generation, demand generation, not necessarily like trying to tie a revenue goal, but maybe it's a form sign up via email or a demo form. I work with a lot of folks that use connected TV as a B2B advertising channel. Mountain uses connected TV to advertise our platform. It would be weird if we didn't, right? And so we've seen a lot of success with our efforts. I wish I could remember the stats, but we did a case study, plug. Go to our website. We have a really cool case study about this exact story, but without remembering the exact details, our connected TV campaign was like going toe to toe with our paid search. Like it was like a sight to behold. We were looking at the stats, and I remember our numbers guy was like, I don't believe this. I'm gonna have to check it again, and it checked out. And so as far as B2B, I'd say it's a very useful tool to have in the mix. And I think it goes back to, I think I mentioned earlier, it's accountable and it's something that you can rely on to generate a measurable return. If you're dealing with a slightly smaller budget than your compatriots in the retail world, which is a good chance that's the case, you can know that you're spending it well. And yeah, I think it's a very effective demand gen tool, and it can help boost your other channels because you're able to target folks that you might be a prospective buyer. Audience targeting, there are B2B options in the audience targeting third-party audiences. Raise awareness, and then when they search for your company, you're picking them up with your paid search campaigns, and you're boosting your other efforts. It's creating that demand that can then be scooped up into leads. So highly recommend B2B advertisers check out connected TV.
Thank you. And you did mention budget, and we have a question and a comment coming from the audience saying it's expensive to create TV commercials. Do you have any suggestions or solutions for someone who may have a small budget?
Yeah. So this has been an interesting adventure, I think, with our advertisers not having traditional television experience, right? They just never really tapped into TV. And what we've seen as we've continued on our journey is that is a real blocker for advertisers. If you don't have the creative for television, well, then how are you going to run an ad on TV, right? And in the past, what we would recommend, and we saw success with this, was if they had social video, recut it, repurpose it for television. And that did work. But you got to keep evolving. You have to keep thinking of more solutions. And so we launched earlier this year. There was a fun announcement with Ryan Reynolds. We creative as a subscription, bundling media into creative cost. So it's this whole, basically you're paying for your media and you're getting creative to run for said media. There's a lot of other options out there that aren't going to carry like an agency level price shameless plug, Quick Frame by Mountain does that too. Needless to say, if this question is being asked here, people are still having this problem, and it behooves everyone to be able to solve for that. And we're seeing great results from what we've been putting out so far, and really just unlocking TV creative for folks to be able to start using this channel. So
Great.
check out all that stuff.
Good, good. And I liked that you talked about repurposing video from other channels, especially social. When I think about that, a lot of what you do on social is very quick and impactful. Do you have any recommendations as far as like lengths of spots on CTV? What works best? If somebody's repurposing.
Yeah. Go with what, I mean, think obviously like you're going to want to use from a creative angle. If you have assets that aren't working for a 30, make them a 15. So 15 and 30 seconds are your options. You'll get different results. That report I made mention of that's on the Mountain Research site actually analyzed the 15 versus 30 seconds. You do get different outcomes for those, but both are effective. And so I'd recommend leaning into your strengths. If you are repurposing, make sure you're telling a good story with your creative. Make sure that you're delivering a full message and adhere to the runtime that fits that, because you got to be resourceful if you're repurposing, right? And you want to make sure you're blending a good outcome with what you've got. And so that would be my recommendation. Really, it's like the bottom line is make sure you can create a CTV ad and then get it up and out there. I think that would be like the biggest advantage from that.
Okay, great. And this year, since the Super Bowl, we've heard a lot about QR codes. Everybody thought they were dead. And then we had that great commercial from Coinbase. Was it just a trend? Is it something folks should follow? The question is, I'd love to hear more about the effectiveness of using QR codes in CTV. Have you seen them increase engagement? What's your suggestion about QR codes?
Yeah, so QR codes, I mean, those are an interesting thing because it's kind of a double-edged sword in a way. It's definitely a way to generate engagement, but you're also asking a passive audience who's sitting back and watching to get their phones and get the TV framed and take a photo. So I think there's advantages and disadvantages to using a QR code. Coinbase, with their Super Bowl ad, was like bold because they literally just ran a QR code. And so if you are a brand, I don't recommend just putting a QR code bouncing around on the screen. It's going to be weird. But if you do want to utilize them in your ads, do it. See what happens. I think if you're going to be relying on them to track engagement, you don't have to do that. There is measurement technology that does that already. You don't have to rely on somebody being ready to take a photo, have their phone in hand, click the QR code. So if your goal is to use that as a tracking device, I wouldn't. But if your goal is to put a spin on your creative and see if that added enhancement does anything for you, check it out, try it out, see what happens.
Great. And we have time for one last question. I talked about how TV has evolved over 30 years. The question is, Tim, where do you see CTV in 5 years?
Oh, man. Oh, shoppable, probably. I feel like interesting with the QR code. I think that is an early stage of like trying to turn the living room into like a storefront. I think as we get more and more into CTV, because we're like, the way I look at it right now is like we're in CTV 2.0. We're starting to get to the point where there's more interest and activity, and the big names in the world are diving in, and so you're seeing they're starting to add to the innovation. And I think that as that continues to evolve, we're going to get 2.0, 3.0, et cetera. 5 years from now, man, anyone's guess. I think that ad-supported tiers will be an interesting thing. I think that there might be more engagement around like how ad breaks are situated. Whether it's like, oh, I'll watch these ads and then get a coupon or something. I think the possibilities are endless. I so focused on the now. 5 years from now, that's a long time in this space. So my official answer is, who knows? I don't know.
That's a fair answer. Well, Tim, thank you so much. This was great content. We really appreciate it. Thank you to our audience for all these fantastic questions. As Tim said, there's a lot more research, a lot more information on Mountain's website. So please go out there and continue your education. Wrap up, let me take a moment, tell everybody what's happening across eMarketer's media channels. You can, of course, register for more upcoming live analyst as well as Tech Talk webinars at emarketer.com/webinars. On August 3rd, I'm going to be back with Mountain, and I look forward to that as well. On the audio side of our house, don't forget Behind the Numbers. That is our daily podcast. And now we have Reimagining Retail on Wednesdays, retail focused podcast, and check out our newsletters. Keep an eye on your email. We're going to send a link to today's presentation as well as the recording and the slides. Please share it around your organization. This was incredible. Tim, you did a great job. I feel educated. I know our audience does. So thank you again so much for taking your time. And thank you to Mountain Research. And thank you to our audience. We'll see you on our next Tech Talk. Bye-bye.